Hey there, future pack members. Welcome to your new favorite obsession. This is where steamy paranormal romance meets pulse-pounding supernatural drama. I'm your narrator, and you've just discovered the channel that's about to become your go-to escape from reality. Tonight, we're launching with an epic werewolf shifter romance about forbidden love, destined bonds, and the kind of primal passion that can either save two souls or destroy everything they've ever known. Picture this, a moonlit night where pack law collides with fate's undeniable pull, where the scent of your fated mate awakens every supernatural instinct you possess, but claiming them could mean betraying everything you've sworn to protect. Are you ready to discover what happens when destiny chooses the most impossible love of all? Let's find out. Chapter 1: Blood Moon Betrayal. The metallic scent of spilled blood hung heavy in the crisp October air as Luna Blackwood crouched behind a fallen oak, her heart hammering against her ribs. Three members of the rival Steelclaw pack lay motionless in the clearing ahead, their bodies twisted at unnatural angles. This wasn't just a territorial dispute, this was a massacre. "The Steelclaws will retaliate," whispered Marcus, her pack's beta, his voice barely audible even to her enhanced werewolf hearing. "We need to get back to Alpha Blackwood before." A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness beyond the treeline. Luna's nostrils flared, automatically searching for the intruder's scent. What she found instead made her entire world tilt off its axis. Pine needles and leather, warm amber, and something indefinably masculine that made her wolf whimper with recognition. The scent wrapped around her senses like a caress, and every nerve ending in her body suddenly came alive with electric awareness. "Mate." The word whispered through her mind with the force of ancient pack magic, undeniable and absolute. Her skin tingled as if touched by lightning, and she could feel her heart synchronizing with another rhythm somewhere in the forest, strong, steady, calling to hers. "No," she breathed, pressing her palms against the rough bark of the tree. This couldn't be happening.
Not now.
Not here. Not with. A figure emerged from the shadows between the trees, and Luna's breath caught in her throat. He was tall and powerfully built, moving with the lethal grace of an apex predator. Moonlight caught the strong planes of his face, the sharp line of his jaw, and eyes that glowed amber gold in the darkness. Even in human form, power radiated from him in waves that made her wolf want to bare her throat in submission. Kale Steelclaw, enemy alpha, her pack's greatest threat, and apparently her fated mate. His gaze swept the clearing, taking in the carnage, before landing directly on her hiding spot. Those golden eyes widened for just a moment, shock, recognition, and something that looked dangerously like hunger flickering across his features. "Impossible," he growled, the word carrying the rough edge of his barely contained wolf. Luna rose slowly from her crouch, knowing there was no point in hiding now. The mate bond pulled at her like a physical chain, urging her toward him even as every rational thought screamed at her to run. Her hands trembled as she fought against the primal need to close the distance between them, to breathe in more of that intoxicating scent. "Your Blackwood pack," Kale said, his voice dangerously low. Behind him, she could see other shapes moving in the forest, his warriors, staying back but ready to strike. "Were you part of this slaughter?" The accusation hit her like a slap. "I didn't. We found them like this. I swear on my alpha's blood, we had nothing to do with." "Your alpha's blood?" His lip curled, revealing the hint of fangs. "How convenient that you'd swear on the blood of the man who murdered my sister." Luna's heart clenched. She'd heard whispers about Alpha Steelclaw's sister, a young wolf who'd allegedly been killed during a border skirmish 6 months ago. But her father had sworn the Blackwood pack wasn't responsible. She'd believed him, hadn't she? "Kale, please," she whispered, his name falling from her lips like a prayer she had no right to speak. "I know what you're feeling. I can feel it too." She pressed a hand to her chest, where the mate bond thrummed like a second heartbeat. "This changes everything." His expression hardened, though she caught the way his hands clenched at his sides, fighting his own battle against the supernatural pull between them. "This changes nothing." "You can't mean that." Desperation crept into her voice. We're fated mates. The goddess herself chose us for each other. You can't just. The goddess has a twisted sense of humor. Kale took a step closer, and Luna's entire body responded to his proximity. Her skin flushed hot despite the cool night air, and she could feel her wolf stirring restlessly, wanting to shift, to run to him, to claim and be claimed. Pairing me with the daughter of my family's murderer. My father isn't. Your father, Kale continued, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, declared war on my pack the day he had my sister hunted down like prey. And you. His gaze raked over her, equal parts desire and disgust. You're his most precious weapon. His heir. His little princess who's never had to face the consequences of daddy's bloodlust. Each word was designed to wound, but Luna could see past his fury to the pain beneath. The mate bond let her feel echoes of his emotions: grief, betrayal, and a longing so intense it took her breath away. He was fighting the connection just as hard as she was, maybe harder. I won't be used against you, she said softly. Whatever my father's done. Won't you? Kale's smile was sharp as a blade. What happens when he orders you to seduce information out of me? When he commands you to lure me into a trap using this bond between us? The terrible thing was, Luna wasn't sure she could refuse such an order. Pack loyalty ran deeper than blood, deeper than personal desires. Even now, standing here drowning in the scent of her destined mate, she could feel the pull of duty warring with the pull of fate. I would never. A howl echoed through the forest, long, mournful, and unmistakably a signal. Marcus grabbed her arm, his grip urgent. Luna, we have to go.
Now.
That's the patrol alert. If the Steelclaws find us here, they'll assume we're the killers, she finished, understanding flooding through her. Someone had set this up. Someone wanted both packs to believe the other was responsible for this massacre. Kale's eyes narrowed as more howls joined the first, coming from multiple directions. My pack will be here soon. They'll want blood for blood. And my pack will give it to them, Luna whispered, already backing toward the tree-line where Marcus waited. The mate bond stretched between her and Kale like a rubber band approaching its breaking point, each step away from him causing physical pain. This isn't over, Kale called after her, his voice rough with emotions she couldn't name. Fate or no fate, you're still a Blackwood. And I am still a Steelclaw. That blood debt will be paid. Luna paused at the edge of the clearing, her heart breaking with every word. Then I guess we'll see each other on the battlefield. She turned and ran, Marcus at her side, leaving her fated mate standing among the bodies of his fallen packmates. Behind them, she could hear the approaching howls growing closer, and she knew that by morning, the tentative peace between their packs would be shattered forever. But even as she raced through the moonlit forest, one thought consumed her above all others. How could the goddess be so cruel as to make her fall in love with the one man she could never have? The mate bond pulsed in her chest like an open wound, and Luna had the terrible feeling that this was only the beginning of her heartbreak. Chapter 2. Secrets and Lies. Luna burst through the front doors of the Blackwood pack house, her chest heaving and her skin still burning from the mate bond's lingering effects. The massive stone structure loomed around her like a fortress, its walls lined with the portraits of generations of Blackwood alphas, all of them watching her with eyes that seemed to know exactly what forbidden desire now coursed through her veins. Luna! Her father's voice boomed across the great hall before she'd taken 3 steps inside. Alpha Vincent Blackwood emerged from his study, his silver hair gleaming under the chandelier's warm light and his pale blue eyes sharp with concern. What happened out there? Marcus sent word through the pack link that you'd found bodies. The pack link. Luna's stomach clenched as she realized every wolf in their territory would have felt the echo of her emotional turmoil through their shared mental connection. How much had they sensed? Could they feel the mate bond thrumming in her chest like a second heartbeat? 3 Steelclaw wolves, she managed, forcing her voice to remain steady. Dead for hours, maybe longer. Someone's trying to start a war, father. Vincent's expression darkened, and Luna caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Was that relief? The thought sent ice through her veins. You're certain they were already dead when you arrived? Completely certain. Luna studied her father's face, searching for any tell, any sign of deception.
Why?
What aren't you telling me? Before Vincent could answer, the pack house doors slammed open again. Luna's younger brother Ash stumbled inside, his dark hair disheveled and his clothing torn. Blood, both his own and someone else's, stained his shirt, and his green eyes blazed with adrenaline and fury. "The Steel Claws ambushed our northern patrol," he announced, his voice carrying the rough edge of a wolf still half-shifted. "4 of our warriors are down. They're claiming we murdered their packmates in cold blood." Luna's heart sank. It was already too late. The carefully orchestrated massacre had achieved exactly what someone had intended: open warfare between the packs. "How badly injured?" Vincent demanded, his alpha authority filling the room with power that made Luna's wolf instinctively submit. "2 critical, 2 walking wounded." "But, Dad..." Ash's gaze found Luna's, and she saw knowledge there that made her blood run cold. They were asking about Luna specifically. The Steelclaw Alpha wants her brought to him for questioning.
Kale.
Even thinking his name made the mate bond pulse with desperate longing. Luna pressed a hand to her chest, trying to contain the sensation before her family noticed. "Absolutely not," Vincent snarled, his partially shifted form casting monstrous shadows on the walls. "No daughter of mine will be handed over to those animals. They said she was seen at the murder site." Ash's voice was carefully neutral, but Luna could see the questions in his eyes. "They're claiming she's a witness at minimum. At worst, they think I'm the killer." Luna sank into one of the leather chairs by the fireplace, suddenly exhausted. The mate bond was like a constant ache in her bones, calling her back to the forest, back to Kale. "This is all so perfectly orchestrated. Someone wants us at each other's throats." "Or," Vincent said quietly, his voice taking on a dangerous edge, "the Steelclaws finally found an excuse to eliminate our strongest bloodline." Luna looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Vincent exchanged a meaningful glance with Ash, and Luna's enhanced senses caught the subtle shift in their sense, the acrid tang of shared secrets. "There's something we haven't told you about the night Mira Steelclaw died," Vincent began, settling into the chair across from her. "Something I hoped you'd never need to know." The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across her father's weathered features. Luna found herself holding her breath. "She wasn't killed in a border skirmish," Ash said when Vincent hesitated. "She was here, in our territory, trying to steal pack secrets." "She was a spy?" Luna's voice came out as barely a whisper. "More than that." Vincent's eyes hardened. "She was trying to find information about you specifically. Your bloodline. Your abilities." Luna's stomach dropped. Her abilities, the ones she'd kept hidden even from most of her own pack. The power to sense lies, to feel the emotions of others, to influence pack bonds themselves. She'd always assumed it was just a stronger version of the standard alpha gifts, but if the Steelclaws had been hunting for information about her, why would they care about my abilities? She asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "Because," Vincent said softly, "according to an ancient prophecy, a wolf with your particular gifts will either unite all the packs under one rule or destroy them entirely." The words hit Luna like a physical blow. Everything suddenly made terrible sense. Why her father had kept her so sheltered, why he'd been so careful about which pack functions she attended, why he'd never allowed her to fully explore the extent of her powers. "You think Kale knows," she whispered. "I think Kale's spent the last 6 months planning his revenge," Ash said grimly. "And tonight gave him the perfect opportunity to make his move." Luna's heart clenched at the thought of Kale manipulating their mate bond for his own ends. But even as the logical part of her mind accepted her family's reasoning, her wolf rebelled against it. The connection she'd felt with him had been real, raw and desperate, and completely beyond either of their control. Hadn't it? "The bond," she murmured, more to herself than to them. "What bond?" Vincent's voice sharpened with alpha command, compelling honesty. Luna's mouth opened before she could stop herself, the words spilling out under her father's influence. "Kale Steelclaw is my fated mate. We recognized each other tonight at the murder scene." The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent's face went through a series of expressions: shock, fury, and finally, something that looked almost like fear. "No," he said flatly. "Absolutely not. I forbid it." "You can't forbid a mate bond, Father." Luna's wolf bristled at the attempted command. "The goddess herself." "The goddess," Vincent interrupted, rising from his chair with lethal grace, "has made a mistake. And we're going to fix it." "Fix it?" Luna stood as well, matching her father's supernatural energy with her own. "You can't fix fate, can't we?" Vincent's smile was cold as winter. "Ash, contact Dr. Winters. Tell her we need a consultation about severing unwanted bonds." Luna's blood turned to ice. Dr. Winters was the pack's expert on supernatural magic, and severing a mate bond was not only excruciatingly painful, it was often fatal. "Dad, no." Ash stepped between them, his expression alarmed. "You can't ask Luna to." "I can, and I will." Vincent's eyes blazed with alpha fury. "I will not allow the Steelclaw Alpha to use our pack's greatest weapon against us. If the goddess truly wanted Luna mated to our enemy, then the goddess has declared war on this family." "Maybe," Luna said quietly, her voice steadying as her own power rose to match his. "The goddess is trying to end this war, not start one." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vincent's wolf was fully present now, pressing against Luna's consciousness with the weight of absolute authority. But for the first time in her life, Luna didn't immediately submit. "You will not see him again," Vincent commanded, his voice carrying the full force of an alpha's will. "You will not speak to him, contact him, or acknowledge this supposed bond. If he approaches you, you will consider him an enemy and act accordingly." The alpha command crashed over Luna like a tidal wave, seeking to burrow into her mind and make her father's will her own. But something else pushed back, something stronger and fiercer than anything she'd ever felt before. The mate bond. Luna gasped, feeling the two supernatural forces war within her consciousness. Her father's command and Kale's claim on her soul, battling for dominance. "I can't. It's not possible to just ignore." "You will make it possible," Vincent snarled, pouring more power into the command. "Or I'll have Dr. Winters sever the bond while you're unconscious." That broke through Luna's resistance, like a slap to the face. She stared at her father, the man who'd raised her, trained her, loved her, and saw a stranger looking back. Someone willing to torture his own daughter rather than consider the possibility that peace might be more valuable than pride. "Fine," she whispered, the word tasting like ash on her tongue. "I'll stay away from him." But even as she spoke the lie, Luna was making plans. The mate bond hummed in her chest with increasing urgency, and she had the distinct feeling that Kale was in trouble, or would be soon. Vincent studied her face for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Good. Ash, double the patrol schedules. If the Steelclaws want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." As her father and brother began discussing strategy, Luna slipped quietly toward the staircase. She had perhaps an hour before they noticed her absence, maybe less. But she had to see Kale again, had to warn him about whatever game was being played with both their lives. Because if her father was right about the prophecy, then someone was very interested in making sure she and Kale remained enemies forever. The question was, who stood to gain from keeping the packs at war? And how far were they willing to go to ensure Luna never discovered the full extent of her power? Chapter 3. Midnight Confessions. Luna slipped through her bedroom window just after midnight, her enhanced hearing tracking the patrol patterns she'd memorized since childhood. The cool October air kissed her skin as she dropped silently to the ground, every nerve ending alive with anticipation and terror. The mate bond pulled at her like a compass needle seeking true north, guiding her steps toward the neutral territory between pack lands. She'd changed into dark clothing, black jeans, a fitted thermal shirt, and boots that would allow her to run if necessary. Her father's alpha command still echoed in the back of her mind, a constant pressure urging her to return home, to forget about Kale's Steelclaw and the impossible connection between them. But the mate bond was stronger, singing in her blood with an urgency that bordered on pain. He's hurt. The knowledge came to her suddenly through their supernatural link, stopping her dead in her tracks. She could feel echoes of his emotions, anger, frustration, and underneath it all, a bone-deep loneliness that made her chest ache in sympathy. Luna broke into a run, her wolf form begging to be released. But shifting would make her easier to track by both packs' patrols, so she pushed her human body to its enhanced limits instead, racing through the moonlit forest with inhuman speed and grace. The neutral ground was marked by an ancient oak tree whose massive trunk would take a dozen people holding hands to encircle. Local legend claimed it had been blessed by the moon goddess herself, making it sacred to all werewolf kind. No blood could be shed beneath its branches, which made it the perfect place for a clandestine meeting between enemy alphas. Kale was already there when she arrived, leaning against the oak's bark with his arms crossed and his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight like a predator's. Even in the darkness, she could see the fresh bruises along his jaw and the way he favored his left side. Someone had hurt him badly. "You came," he said, his voice rough with surprise and something that sounded dangerously like relief. "Of course I came." Luna approached slowly, fighting the overwhelming urge to rush to him, to touch him, to reassure herself that he was alive and whole. "You're injured. What happened?" A bitter laugh escaped his lips. "My beta decided that having a mate bond with the Blackwood made me compromised. He challenged me for pack leadership." Luna's heart clenched. In werewolf society, leadership challenges were brutal affairs, often ending in death or permanent exile for the loser. And I reminded him why I became alpha in the first place. Kale's smile was sharp as broken glass, but not before he managed to crack a few ribs and spread doubt about my loyalty throughout the pack. "This is my fault." The words tumbled out before Luna could stop them. "If the bond hadn't." "Don't." Kale pushed away from the tree, closing the distance between them with predatory grace. "Don't you dare apologize for something neither of us can control." He was close enough now that Luna could smell his intoxicating scent, pine and leather, and that indefinable something that made her wolf whimper with need. Her skin tingled as if electrified, and she could feel her heart synchronizing with his once again. "My father wants to sever the bond," she whispered, the confession falling from her lips like a prayer. "He's bringing in Dr. Winters to perform some kind of magical procedure." Kale's eyes flashed dangerously. "Over my dead body." "That's exactly what he's hoping for." Luna reached out without thinking, her fingers tracing the edge of a particularly nasty bruise along his cheekbone. The moment her skin touched his, electricity shot through both of them, and Kale's sharp intake of breath told her he felt it too. "Kale, there's something else. Something about why your sister was really in our territory the night she died." His entire body went rigid. "What about Mira? She wasn't just scouting our borders. She was looking for information about me specifically. About my abilities." Luna watched Kale's expression carefully as she spoke, using her supernatural senses to monitor his emotional state. His scent carried the metallic tang of shock, but underneath that was something else. Guilt? Fear? She couldn't quite identify it. "What abilities?" he asked carefully. "I can sense lies," Luna said, deciding honesty was her only option. "Feel emotions through touch. Influence pack bonds. My father thinks there's some ancient prophecy about wolves like me either uniting all the packs or destroying them." Kale was quiet for a long moment, his golden eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed and vulnerable. "I know about the prophecy," he said finally. Luna's heart stopped. "What?" "The lunar oracle. When moon-blessed blood runs strong and true, the child of Alpha's ancient line shall either forge the bonds anew or see them shattered, pack by pack, until the wolf song dies." Kale's voice carried the cadence of words learned by heart. "My grandmother made me memorize it when I was 12. "Your grandmother?" Luna's mind raced. "But that would mean our packs have known about you for years." Kale's expression was grim. "And that everything that's happened, including Myra's death, has been orchestrated to keep you away from your true potential." The implications hit Luna like a physical blow. "Someone's been manipulating both our packs." Not someone, Kale said quietly. Multiple someones. Think about it, Luna. Who benefits from keeping the Blackwood and Steelclaw packs at war? Who gains power when the two strongest bloodlines in the territory are too busy fighting each other to notice outside threats? Luna's enhanced senses suddenly picked up new scents on the wind. Multiple wolves, moving fast, surrounding their position. Her blood turned to ice as she recognized the distinctive musk of the Shadowmere Pack, the territory's third-largest group and historically neutral in Blackwood Steelclaw conflicts. Kale, she whispered urgently. We're not alone. His nostrils flared, confirming what she'd already sensed. Around them, yellow eyes gleamed in the darkness as at least a dozen wolves materialized from the forest shadows. Well, came a smooth voice from the treeline. The two little lovebirds, finally together at last. Alpha Damien Shadowmere stepped into the moonlight, his silver hair gleaming and his pale eyes alight with malicious satisfaction. He was flanked by his Beta and Gamma, both in partial wolf form with claws extended and fangs bared. Damien. Kale moved protectively in front of Luna, his own wolf rising to the surface. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Damien replied with a cold smile. Power. Territory. Control over the strongest bloodlines in the region. His gaze fixed on Luna with predatory hunger. And thanks to your little romance, I'm finally going to get all three. You orchestrated the murders, Luna breathed, understanding flooding through her. You killed those Steelclaw wolves and framed my pack. Guilty as charged. Damien's smile widened. Though I must say, you two falling for each other was an unexpected bonus. Nothing quite like star-crossed lovers to really sell the tragedy of it all. Luna felt Kale's fury through their bond, a red-hot rage that made her own wolf snarl in response. But underneath his anger was something else. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. The prophecy, Kale said, his voice deadly quiet. You're afraid of what she could become. Afraid? Damien laughed. Oh, my dear boy, I'm not afraid of little Luna. I'm counting on her. He gestured, and his wolves began closing their circle. You see, the prophecy doesn't just say she'll unite the packs or destroy them. It says she'll do both. First unity, then complete destruction. And from those ashes, a new order will rise. With you at the head of it, Luna said, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. Exactly. Damien's eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. But first, we need to eliminate the one variable I can't control. His gaze fixed on Kale, and Luna's blood ran cold as she realized what was about to happen. No, she whispered, moving to stand beside her fated mate. I won't let you hurt him. My dear girl, Damien said softly, you don't have a choice. Kill them both, but make it look like they died fighting each other. By morning, both packs will be screaming for blood, and the real war can finally begin. The Shadowmere wolves attacked as one, and Luna had just enough time to think that this was definitely not how she'd imagined her first real date would end. But as Kale shifted beside her and her own wolf roared to life, one thing became crystal clear. Prophecy or no prophecy, no one was going to use her power to destroy the people she loved. Even if it meant embracing the variabilities everyone seemed so afraid of. Chapter 4: Fire and Fury. The transformation hit Luna like lightning striking her spine. Her bones cracked and reformed, muscles stretching and reshaping as her wolf form exploded to the surface. But this wasn't the controlled shift she'd practiced 1,000 times. This was something primal and desperate, fueled by the mate bond and her desperate need to protect Kale. Her wolf was larger than it had ever been before, her midnight black fur seeming to absorb the moonlight itself. Power coursed through her veins like molten silver, and for the first time in her life, Luna felt the full extent of her supernatural abilities awakening. Beside her, Kale's shift was equally dramatic. His wolf was massive, easily the largest she'd ever seen, with silver-gray fur and those same piercing golden eyes. Even in wolf form, he radiated alpha dominance, but there was something else there too. Complete and utter trust as he positioned himself to fight alongside her rather than in front of her. The Shadowmere wolves struck like a coordinated hunting pack, but Luna was ready. As the first attacker launched itself at her throat, she felt something snap into place in her mind, a connection not just to Kale, but to the supernatural bonds that linked all werewolves to their packs. I can feel them all, she realized with shock. Every Shadowmere wolf in the circle, their pack bonds like glowing threads in her enhanced perception. And more than that, she could manipulate those bonds. Luna dodged the first attacker's snapping jaws and reached out with her mind, grasping the pack connection between two of Damien's wolves. With a mental twist that felt as natural as breathing, she severed the link. Both wolves collapsed mid-attack, howling in confusion and pain as they suddenly found themselves cut off from their pack's shared strength. In wolf society, being severed from the pack bond was a fate worse than death, complete isolation from everything that made them whole. Impossible, Damien snarled, his own partial transformation revealing fangs like ivory daggers. No wolf has that kind of power, but Luna was just getting started. She could feel Kale's amazement and fierce pride through their mate bond as she reached out to touch the minds of more attackers. Not to sever their bonds, that was too cruel for wolves who were simply following their alpha's orders, but to confuse them, to make them forget, temporarily, why they were fighting. 3 more Shadowmere wolves stumbled to a halt, shaking their heads as if waking from a dream. One actually sat down and began grooming his paw, completely oblivious to the battle raging around him. Kale took advantage of the chaos, his powerful jaws clamping down on the throat of a wolf who'd been trying to flank Luna. He didn't kill. Alphas were trained from birth to avoid unnecessary death, but his opponent would be unconscious for hours. "You little witch," Damien spat, abandoning his human form entirely. His wolf was sleek and deadly, silver-white with eyes like chips of ice. "I should have killed you years ago. Prophecy be damned." He launched himself directly at Luna, moving with the speed and precision of a born killer. But Luna's newly awakened abilities gave her something no other wolf possessed, the ability to sense his intentions before he acted. She could feel his decision to strike, the exact trajectory he would take, even which leg he would favor in his landing. She sidestepped his attack with inhuman grace, and as he passed by, she reached out with one clawed paw and touched his mind. What she found there made her recoil in horror. Images flooded through her consciousness. Years of careful manipulation and planning. Damien hadn't just orchestrated the recent murders. He'd been behind dozens of incidents over the past decade. Border skirmishes, accidental deaths, missing wolves who'd been asking too many questions about pack politics. And underneath it all, a burning obsession with the prophecy and the power Luna represented. But there was something else in his memories, something that made Luna's blood run cold. Her father wasn't the noble alpha she believed him to be. Vincent Blackwood had known about Damien's plans, had been working with him. The shock of that revelation sent Luna stumbling backward, right into the path of another attacker. She barely had time to register the danger before Kale's massive form slammed into her side, knocking her clear as razor-sharp claws raked across his flank instead of hers. His pain hit her through the mate bond like a physical blow, and Luna's wolf howled with rage. Her power exploded outward without conscious control, touching every supernatural bond within a mile radius. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Every wolf in the area, Shadowmere, Blackwood, and Steelclaw alike, suddenly found themselves linked not to their individual packs, but to Luna herself. She became the center of a vast web of supernatural energy, and the rush of it was almost too much for her human consciousness to handle. Through the connections, she could feel everything. The confusion of patrol wolves suddenly sensing enemies and allies differently, the panic of pack leaders realizing their bonds had been altered, and most disturbing of all, her father's fury as he realized exactly what was happening. "Luna!" Vincent's voice echoed through the pack link, carrying the full weight of Alpha Command. "Stop this immediately. You don't understand what you're doing." But Luna did understand, finally. She could feel the truth through all the connections she'd forged, the lies, the manipulation, the careful orchestration of hatred between packs that should have been allies. And at the center of it all, Two alphas who'd been willing to sacrifice their own children for power. No more. She projected back through the supernatural web, her mental voice carrying an authority that surprised even her. No more lies. No more war. No more using innocent wolves as pawns in your games. She turned her attention back to the immediate threat, focusing her power on Damien and his remaining conscious wolves. But instead of attacking their minds, she did something far more devastating. She showed them the truth. Through the pack bonds she now controlled, Luna shared Damien's memories with every wolf present. His plans, his manipulations, his willingness to see entire bloodlines destroyed for his own ambition. The revelation hit the Shadowmere wolves like a physical blow, and Luna watched several of them shift back to human form in shock and horror. "My alpha," one of them whispered, staring at Damien with betrayal written across his features. "How could you? Those wolves you ordered us to kill, they were innocent." Damien snarled, realizing his authority was crumbling. "You don't understand. The prophecy demands sacrifice. Luna's power will destroy us all if we don't control it." "The only thing that needs to be destroyed," came a new voice from the forest edge, "is your twisted interpretation of fate." Kale's grandmother emerged from the treeline, her ancient eyes glowing with inner fire. Elder Sarah Steelclaw was old even by werewolf standards, but her power was undimmed by age. Behind her came a small group of elder wolves from all three packs, their expressions grim. "The true prophecy," Sarah continued, her voice carrying the weight of centuries, "speaks not of destruction, but of choice. The moon-blessed child shall stand at the crossroads of pack and destiny, and her choice shall determine whether the old ways die or are reborn stronger than before." Luna felt the truth of those words resonate through every supernatural bond she held. This was what the prophecy had really meant, not that she was destined to destroy or unite, but that she would be given the power to choose. And in that moment, with Kale bleeding at her side and the truth of multiple betrayals burning in her mind, Luna made her choice. She reached out through the web of pack bonds, touching every werewolf consciousness within her range. Instead of commanding or controlling, she simply offered a new way of being connected. Not the rigid hierarchy of traditional pack structure, but something more flexible, stronger. A family bound not by force or fear, but by genuine loyalty and trust. The response was overwhelming. One by one, wolves from all three packs began to accept the new bond structure, their relief at finally being free from years of manipulation flowing through the supernatural network like a healing balm. But even as Luna felt the first stirrings of true unity among her people, she knew this was far from over. Through her connection to her father, she could sense his rage and his preparations for war. Vincent Blackwood would not give up his power easily, and neither would the other corrupt alphas who'd been part of Damien's conspiracy. The real battle was just beginning. "You've doomed us all," Damien's mental voice hissed through the pack link as Elder Sarah's group moved to restrain him. "The old alphas will never accept this change. They'll destroy everything before they let a female lead." Luna shifted back to human form, her naked body immediately warmed by Kale's protective presence as he shifted beside her and wrapped her in his jacket. Around them, the Shadowmere wolves who'd accepted her new bond structure were helping their injured packmates, their faces showing a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Then we'll be ready for them," Luna said quietly, her hand finding Kale's. The mate bond between them had grown stronger through the shared battle, becoming something deeper than mere attraction. They were partners now, in every sense of the word. Kale's fingers intertwined with hers, his golden eyes reflecting the same determination she felt. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." But as they stood among the aftermath of their first real victory, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that her father's next move would be far more dangerous than anything Damien had planned. And this time, she might have to choose between her family and her fated mate. Chapter 5. The Price of Truth. Dawn was breaking over the Steelclaw territory when Luna finally allowed herself to collapse. She sat heavily on the porch steps of the pack's medical cabin, her entire body aching from the supernatural exertion of maintaining dozens of altered pack bonds simultaneously. Beside her, Kale winced as Dr. Martinez finished stitching the claw marks across his ribs. 23 stitches, the pack doctor announced grimly. You're lucky those claws didn't go deeper, Alpha. Another inch, and you'd have punctured a lung. Luna's heart clenched as she felt echoes of Kale's pain through their mate bond. The connection between them had grown exponentially stronger since the battle, to the point where she could sense his emotions as clearly as her own. Right now, underneath his stoic exterior, she could feel his worry, not for his injuries, but for her. I'm fine, she said softly, though they both knew it was a lie. The mental strain of controlling so many supernatural bonds was like nothing she'd ever experienced. Her head pounded with each heartbeat, and she could taste copper in her mouth from where she'd bitten her tongue during the power surge. You're exhausted, Kale corrected gently, his hand finding hers despite Dr. Martinez's continued ministrations. And you've been connected to my pack for 6 hours straight. That kind of sustained mental link would drain an elder, let alone someone just discovering their abilities. Through the windows of the cabin, Luna could see members of all 3 packs moving around the Steelclaw compound. The aftermath of her power display had been both miraculous and chaotic. Wolves who'd been enemies for decades were now working side by side, their artificial hatred dissolved by the truth she'd forced them to confront. But the transition wasn't without its problems. Status report, Kale called to his beta, Marcus Ironwood, who approached with a tablet full of notes. 17 Shadowmere wolves have formally requested asylum, Marcus reported, his scarred face grave. They're claiming their alpha's actions violated every code of pack law and requesting new leadership. Elder Sarah is mediating the formal hearings. And the rest of Damien's pack scattered. Some fled back to their territory. Others are demanding proof that the memory visions were real and not some kind of supernatural manipulation. Marcus's gaze flicked to Luna with a mixture of respect and uncertainty. The elders are calling for a formal gathering of all regional packs to address the situation. By the situation, Luna knew he meant her. Word of her abilities was spreading fast, and not all the reactions were positive. Traditional pack leaders didn't appreciate having their authority challenged, especially by a young female who could rewrite the supernatural bonds that held their power structures together. How long do we have? Kale asked, though Luna could feel through their bond that he already suspected the answer. 3 days. The gathering is being called for the next full moon. Marcus hesitated. Alpha Blackwood is demanding Luna be surrendered for questioning about her unnatural abilities and their threat to pack stability. Luna's blood turned to ice. A formal pack gathering under the full moon was the werewolf equivalent of a trial, complete with the potential for exile or execution if the assembled alphas deemed her too dangerous to live. Over my dead body, Kale growled, his partial transformation making his voice rough with barely contained fury. That's exactly what he's counting on, came a new voice from behind them. They turned to see Elder Sarah approaching, her ancient face lined with concern. Behind her walked Luna's brother Ash, his green eyes blazing with anger and something that looked like fear.
Ash.
Luna rose unsteadily, Kale's steadying hand immediately at her elbow. What are you doing here? Warning you, Ash said grimly. Dad's lost his mind, Luna. He's calling in favors from every allied pack in the region, claiming you've been compromised by enemy influence and need to be cleansed of your unnatural abilities. The word cleansed sent a chill down Luna's spine. In pack law, cleansing rituals were brutal affairs that often left their subjects permanently damaged or dead. There's more, Elder Sarah added, her voice heavy with sorrow. Your father has formally challenged Kale's right to claim you as his mate. He's demanding trial by combat for your hand. Luna felt Kale's shock and rage through their bond, but his voice remained steady. On what grounds? He claims the mate bond is artificial, that you've used your abilities to manipulate Kale's emotions and create a false connection. Sarah's eyes were full of ancient sadness. It's an old law, rarely invoked, but technically valid. That's insane, Luna breathed. I would never. The mate bond isn't something that can be faked. We know that, Ash said quickly. Anyone with supernatural senses can feel the authentic connection between you two. But Dad's not interested in truth right now. He's desperate to maintain control, and he sees your power as the ultimate threat to his authority. Luna sank back onto the porch steps, overwhelmed by the implications. A trial by combat for mate rights was a fight to the death, no quarter asked or given. Her father was literally willing to kill Kale rather than acknowledge her right to choose her own destiny. There has to be another way, she said desperately. Some other law or precedent. Actually, Sarah interrupted, a thoughtful expression crossing her weathered features. There might be. Everyone turned to look at the elder, hope flickering in their eyes. The rite of true bonding, Sarah continued slowly. It's an ancient ceremony that predates the modern pact system. If two fated mates can successfully complete the ritual, their bond becomes unbreakable and unquestionable under pact law. What kind of ritual? Kale asked, though Luna could feel his wariness through their connection. A test of absolute trust and vulnerability. Both mates must willingly share their deepest secrets, their greatest fears, their most shameful memories. They must stand before the assembled packs completely exposed, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and declare their bond genuine. Luna's cheeks burned at the thought of such public vulnerability, but Kale's hand squeezed hers reassuringly. If we complete this ritual, he said, Vincent can't challenge our bond. Not under pact law, Sarah confirmed. But she hesitated, clearly reluctant to continue. But what? Luna prompted. The ritual must be completed during the full moon, in front of all assembled pack leaders. If even one alpha present declares the bond false or claims to detect deception, both mates are executed immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Luna could feel Kale's fear, not for himself, but for her. Through their bond, she sensed him calculating odds, weighing risks, already preparing to face Vincent in combat rather than subject her to such danger. I'll do it, she said quietly. Luna, no. Kale's voice was sharp with alarm. It's too risky. Your father has allies among the pack leaders, wolves who would declare any bond false just to eliminate a threat to their power. And if we don't try this, he'll force you into a death match. Luna turned to face him fully, her hands cupping his face. I won't let you die for me, Kale. I won't. She could see the war playing out in his golden eyes, his protective instincts battling with his respect for her choice. Finally, he covered her hands with his own. Together, he said simply, whatever we face it together. Together, Luna agreed, though her heart was hammering with terror. There's something else, Ash said reluctantly. Dad's not just calling for the ritual or combat. He's also demanding that Luna undergo evaluation by the regional council to determine if her abilities pose a threat to werewolf society as a whole. Luna's blood chilled. The regional council was made up of the oldest, most conservative alphas in North America. They viewed any deviation from traditional pack structure as inherently dangerous. What kind of evaluation? Kale's voice had gone deadly quiet. Power suppression, Sarah said grimly. They'll try to bind her abilities permanently, reducing her to a normal werewolf. And if that doesn't work? The elder's silence was answer enough. Luna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. In 3 days, she would stand before the most powerful werewolves in the region and risk everything for the right to love the man fate had chosen for her. But first, she had to survive whatever her father was planning to prevent her from reaching that gathering alive. Through their bond, she felt Kale's fierce determination and unwavering love, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Luna allowed herself to hope. If they could pass the rite of true bonding, they wouldn't just be saving their own lives. They'd be proving that love was stronger than politics, that choice was more powerful than tradition, and that the future of werewolf society didn't have to be built on fear and control. But as the morning sun climbed higher and the full moon drew ever closer, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that her father had one more devastating surprise waiting for them. And this time, it might be something even her newfound powers couldn't overcome. Chapter 6. Bonds of Fire and Shadow. The attack came at sunset on the second day. Luna was in Kale's private study, surrounded by ancient texts about mate bond rituals, when the first explosion shattered the evening quiet. The windows rattled in their frames, and through their supernatural connection, she felt Kale's immediate alarm from somewhere else in the compound. "Stay inside," his voice commanded through their mate bond. "Lock the doors and don't come out until I give the all-clear." But Luna had barely reached for the door handle when it burst open, revealing her father in full alpha mode. Vincent Blackwood's eyes blazed gold with supernatural fury, and his partially shifted form cast monstrous shadows in the lamplight. "Hello, daughter," he said softly, and Luna's blood turned to ice at the deadly calm in his voice. "Dad." She backed toward the desk, her hand instinctively reaching for the silver letter opener that lay among the scattered books. "What are you doing here?" "Cleaning up a mess that's gotten entirely out of hand." Vincent stepped into the room, and Luna caught the scent of smoke and blood on his clothes. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Luna? The chaos you've unleashed?" Through the windows, she could hear the sounds of battle, snarls, howls, and the clash of supernatural forces meeting in violent conflict. Her newly formed pack bond screamed with the pain of wolves under attack, and she could feel some of the connections being severed entirely. Death. Members of her extended pack family were dying. "The Steelclaw compound is under siege," Vincent continued conversationally, as if discussing the weather. 47 wolves from 6 different packs, all united in their desire to eliminate the threat you represent. "They're calling it a cleansing operation." "You're slaughtering innocent people," Luna whispered, horror and rage warring in her chest. "I'm saving our species from a power that could destroy everything we've built." Vincent's expression hardened. "Your little demonstration the other night has every traditionalist pack in the region terrified. They're convinced you're going to tear apart the natural order, and honestly, they're probably right." Luna felt a familiar tingle at the base of her skull. Her father was trying to exert alpha dominance over her, to force submission through supernatural command. But her newly awakened abilities pushed back, and she was shocked to realize his power couldn't touch her anymore. "I'm not the same wolf you left behind," she said quietly. "Your commands don't work on me now." Vincent's eyes narrowed dangerously. "No, they don't. Which is exactly why you need to be stopped." He moved with inhuman speed, but Luna was ready. Her power lashed out instinctively, seeking the pack bonds that connected her father to his followers. What she found there made her stomach lurch with betrayal. Vincent wasn't just working with traditionalist alphas, he was being controlled by them. Ancient pack bonds, twisted and corrupted, wound through his mind like poisonous vines. Someone had been manipulating her father for months, maybe years, using supernatural coercion to turn him against his own daughter. "Dad, listen to me," Luna said urgently, dodging his grasping hands. "You're being influenced. I can see the corrupted bonds in your mind. Someone's been controlling you." "Lies," Vincent snarled, but Luna caught the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. She pressed her advantage, reaching out with her abilities to touch the twisted connections she'd sensed. The moment her power made contact, images flooded her consciousness, memories that weren't her father's own. A secret meeting in a moonlit clearing. Ancient alphas with eyes like winter storms. Promises of power and position in exchange for eliminating the aberrant bloodline. And underneath it all, a presence so old and malevolent it made Luna's wolf whimper in terror. "The Shadow Council," she breathed, recognition hitting her like a physical blow. "They're real." The Shadow Council was legendary among werewolves, a cabal of immortal alphas who supposedly guided werewolf evolution from behind the scenes. Most packs dismissed them as myth, but Luna could feel the truth of their existence in the corrupted bonds wrapped around her father's mind. "They've been planning this for decades," she whispered, understanding flooding through her. "The pack wars, the territorial disputes, even Myra's death, all of it was designed to keep the bloodlines weak and divided." Vincent's attack faltered as her words hit home. That's impossible. The council doesn't exist? Then explain the bonds controlling your thoughts. Explain why you're suddenly willing to murder your own daughter after 23 years of love and protection." Luna reached out with her power, not to attack, but to gently probe the corrupted connections. What she found was horrifying, layers upon layers of supernatural manipulation, going back years. Her father's growing paranoia about her abilities, his increasing isolation from the pack, even his recent alliance with Damien Shadowmere, all of it orchestrated by outside forces. "Let me help you," she pleaded, extending her hand toward him. "I can break the bonds. I can free you from their influence." For a moment, Vincent wavered. Luna could see the man who'd taught her to hunt, who'd bandaged her scraped knees, who'd sung lullabies when nightmares kept her awake. But then his expression hardened again, and she felt the corrupted bonds tighten their grip on his mind. "Even if that were true," he said quietly, "it doesn't change what you are, what you could become. The prophecy speaks of destruction, Luna. Even free of outside influence, I can't risk letting that power loose on the world." The study door exploded inward, and Kale burst into the room with Marcus close behind. Both alphas were covered in blood and breathing hard from battle, their eyes wild with adrenaline and fury. "Get away from her," Kale snarled, his wolf fully present and ready to kill. "The infamous mate," Vincent said with cold amusement. "Perfect timing. I was just explaining to Luna why this farce needs to end." Luna felt Kale's rage through their bond, but also his tactical assessment of the situation. Her father was a powerful alpha in his prime, and in his current state, he wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who stood in his way. "The compound," she asked Kale, through their mental link. "Under control. We drove them back, but barely. Your father brought an army. He's being controlled by the Shadow Council. They've been manipulating him for years." She felt Kale's shock ripple through their connection, followed immediately by grim understanding. If the Shadow Council was real and actively working against Luna, then this was bigger than pack politics or territorial disputes. This was about the very future of werewolf society. "Stand down, Vincent," Elder Sarah's voice commanded from the doorway. The ancient wolf's eyes blazed with power that made even Luna's enhanced senses recoil. "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," Vincent replied, but Luna could see the strain in his expression as he fought against Sarah's elder authority. "The girl is too dangerous to live." "The girl," Sarah said softly, stepping into the room with fluid grace, "is the key to everything our people could become. The Shadow Council fears her because they know she could free us all from their manipulation." Vincent's eyes widened. "You know about the council?" "Child, I helped found the original council 3 centuries ago, before they became corrupted by power and fear." Sarah's voice carried the weight of ancient authority. "I've been fighting their influence ever since." The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Luna stared at the elder wolf with new understanding, pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. "You've been protecting me," Luna realized, "guiding my development, making sure I'd be strong enough when the time came." "Your grandmother asked me to before she died," Sarah confirmed. "She foresaw this moment, the choice you'd have to make between accepting their control or breaking free entirely." Vincent's face crumpled as the full scope of his manipulation became clear. "They've been using me against my own daughter." "Dad." Luna stepped toward him slowly, her hand extended. "Let me help you. Let me break the bonds they've wrapped around your mind." This time, Vincent didn't resist as Luna's power touched the corrupted connections. The process was agonizing, like performing surgery on a living soul, but gradually, the poisonous influences began to dissolve. Vincent collapsed to his knees as the last of the Shadow Council's control snapped, his expression clearing for the first time in months. "Luna," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "What have I done?" "The things I've said, the wolves I've—" "It wasn't you," Luna said firmly, kneeling beside her father and pulling him into a fierce embrace. "They used you, just like they've used others. But you're free now." Through the windows, dawn was breaking over a compound scarred by battle, but still standing. Luna could feel the pack bonds she'd forged strengthening as wolves from multiple territories chose unity over the ancient divisions that had kept them weak. But she also sensed something else, a vast malevolent presence withdrawing to the shadows, ancient and patient and far from defeated. The Shadow Council had lost this battle, but the war was far from over. And in 2 days, Luna would have to stand before the assembled regional packs and prove that her bond with Kale was strong enough to survive whatever the council threw at them next. The rite of true bonding suddenly seemed like the least of their worries. Chapter 7. The Rite of True Bonding. The ancient ceremonial grounds lay nestled in a valley between three mountain peaks, bathed in the silver light of the full moon. Stone circles dating back millennia formed concentric rings around a central altar, and the very air thrummed with supernatural energy accumulated over centuries of werewolf rituals. Luna stood at the edge of the outer circle, her heart hammering as she surveyed the assembled crowd. Nearly 200 werewolves from dozens of packs had gathered to witness the rite of true bonding, some supportive, others openly hostile, all of them drawn by curiosity about the wolf who'd supposedly gained the power to rewrite pack bonds themselves. "You don't have to do this," Kale murmured beside her, his hand warm and steady in hers. Through their mate bond, she could feel his love and unwavering support, but also his bone-deep fear for her safety. "Yes, I do," Luna replied softly, her gaze finding her father in the crowd. Vincent stood with Elder Sarah and several other reformed alphas who'd been freed from Shadow Council influence. His face was etched with guilt and worry, but his scent carried nothing but fierce paternal love and pride. At the opposite end of the gathering, Luna spotted the traditional faction, older alphas whose rigid expressions made their opinions clear. Among them stood regional council members, their ancient eyes cold as winter stars. They'd agreed to honor the results of the rite, but Luna had no illusions about their true intentions. "The moon reaches its zenith," announced the ritual keeper, an elderly female wolf whose voice carried the authority of centuries. "Let the candidates approach the sacred circle." Luna and Kale walked hand in hand toward the central altar, their bare feet silent on the ancient stone. For the rite of true bonding, they wore simple white robes that would be discarded once the ceremony began. Vulnerability and complete honesty were requirements that extended to physical nakedness, as well as emotional exposure. Kale Steelclaw and Luna Blackwood, the ritual keeper intoned, her voice echoing off the mountain walls. "You come before the assembled packs, claiming to share a bond blessed by the moon goddess herself. Are you prepared to prove this claim through trial of absolute truth?" "We are," they answered in unison. "Then let the rite begin." The ritual keeper raised an ornate silver chalice, filled with what Luna knew was a mixture of sacred herbs and wolf blood. The potion would heighten their supernatural senses to the point where lies became impossible, but it would also strip away every mental defense, leaving them completely vulnerable to the emotions and intentions of everyone present. Luna drank first, the bitter liquid burning down her throat like liquid fire. Almost immediately, the world around her sharpened with painful clarity. She could smell the individual sense of every wolf in attendance: fear, excitement, hatred, hope, all of it flooding her enhanced senses in overwhelming waves. Kale took the chalice next, his jaw tightening as the potion took effect. Through their bond, Luna felt his supernatural barriers dissolving, leaving his mind and heart completely open to her and to the assembled crowd. "Remove your coverings," the ritual keeper commanded. "Let no barrier remain between your souls and the moon's judgment." Luna's hands trembled as she untied her robe, but Kale's steadying presence gave her courage. They stood naked before the crowd, but it was more than physical nudity. Every emotional wall, every carefully guarded secret, every moment of shame or fear was now visible to anyone with supernatural senses. "Kale Steelclaw," the ritual keeper began, "speak your deepest truth about this bond." Kale's voice rang clear in the mountain air. "Luna Blackwood is my fated mate, chosen by the goddess and confirmed by every supernatural instinct I possess. I love her not because of magic or manipulation, but because she is brave enough to choose compassion over vengeance, unity over division, and hope over fear." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the truth of his words became undeniable. No wolf under the potion's influence could lie, and the sincerity of his emotion was palpable. "Luna Blackwood," the ritual keeper continued, "speak your deepest truth about this bond." Luna's voice was steady despite her racing heart. Kale's Steelclaw is my fated mate, and I love him with every fiber of my being. But more than that, I trust him with my power, my fears, and my destiny. He sees my abilities not as something to control or fear, but as a gift to be nurtured and guided by wisdom. A wave of supernatural recognition swept through the assembled wolves as the mate bond between Luna and Kale blazed visibly in their enhanced perceptions. Even the most skeptical alphas couldn't deny the authenticity of what they were witnessing. But Luna knew the hardest part was yet to come. Now, the ritual keeper announced, you must share your deepest shame, your greatest fear, and your most sacred dream. Hold nothing back, for the moon sees all. Kale spoke first, his voice rough with emotion. My deepest shame. I blamed Luna's pack for my sister's death without seeking the truth, and my hatred nearly destroyed the chance for real peace. My greatest fear, that my need to protect Luna will overshadow her need to lead her own destiny. My most sacred dream, a world where our children never have to choose between love and loyalty. Luna felt tears streaming down her face as the beauty and honesty of his confession washed over the assembled crowd. Through the enhanced supernatural senses, every wolf present could feel the absolute truth of his words. Now it was her turn. My deepest shame, Luna began, her voice carrying across the silent gathering, is that I enjoyed the power I felt when I severed those pack bonds during battle. For a moment, I understood why others might want to control and dominate rather than heal and unite. Gasps and murmurs of alarm rippled through the more traditional wolves, but Luna continued. My greatest fear is that the prophecy is true, that my power will ultimately destroy the pack system, leaving our people vulnerable and alone. And my most sacred dream. She looked directly at Kale, her love shining clearly in her enhanced aura. Is that I can learn to use my gifts to heal the wounds between our people rather than create new ones. The silence that followed was absolute. Luna could feel the weight of 200 supernatural minds processing her words, weighing her sincerity, judging her worthiness. Then, one by one, she began to sense acceptance. Not from everyone, several traditional alphas still radiated hostility and suspicion, but from enough wolves to matter. Is there any among you who would challenge the authenticity of this bond? The ritual keeper called out. Luna's heart stopped as Alpha Mordecai Ironheart, the oldest and most conservative of the regional council members, stepped forward. His ancient eyes glowed with power that predated modern pack structures, and his scent carried the metallic tang of absolute authority. I challenge, he announced, his voice carrying across the valley like thunder. Kale growled low in his throat, moving protectively in front of Luna, but she placed a calming hand on his shoulder. On what grounds? The ritual keeper asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. The female's power corrupts the natural order, Mordecai declared. I have seen her abilities in action, the way she can sever and alter pack bonds at will. Such power cannot coexist with authentic love. She manipulates emotions the way a spider manipulates its web. Luna felt despair clawing at her chest. Under the influence of the ritual potion, she couldn't defend herself with anything but absolute truth, and the truth was that she did possess the power to manipulate supernatural bonds. But then Kale stepped forward, his naked form radiating alpha dominance despite his vulnerable state. You want proof that our bond is real? He challenged, his golden eyes blazing with fierce determination. Then witness this. Before Luna could stop him, Kale reached out through their mate bond and did something she'd never felt before. He opened his mind completely to her, dropping every barrier, sharing every memory, every emotion, every secret he'd ever held. The intimacy of it was overwhelming. Luna saw herself through his eyes, not as a weapon to be controlled or feared, but as a woman to be cherished and protected. She felt his love for her like a physical warmth, untainted by manipulation or supernatural coercion. More than that, she could feel his absolute trust as he handed her complete access to his mind and soul. If Luna wanted to control me, Kale announced to the assembled crowd, she could do so right now. I'm completely defenseless against her power. And yet, Luna understood what he was asking of her. With tears streaming down her face, she reached out through their bond and gently touched his mind, not to control or manipulate, but to share her own complete emotional truth. The effect was immediate and profound. Their love blazed between them like a beacon, visible to every supernatural sense in the gathering. But more than love, trust, respect, partnership, and a deep commitment to growing together rather than dominating each other. By the goddess, someone whispered in the crowd. Even Alpha Mordecai stepped back, his ancient features showing something that might have been awe. I have never, he said slowly, witnessed a bond of such authentic power and mutual respect. The challenge is withdrawn. The ritual keeper raised her hands to the full moon. Then let it be witnessed by all present. Kale Steelclaw and Luna Blackwood are true mates, blessed by the goddess and confirmed by sacred right. Let no wolf question their bond, and may their union bring strength to all our people. The ceremonial grounds erupted in howls of acceptance and celebration. Luna collapsed against Kale's chest, overwhelmed by relief and the intensity of their shared emotional experience. But even as they held each other under the moon's silver light, Luna's enhanced senses picked up something that made her blood run cold, a familiar malevolent presence watching from the shadows beyond the ceremonial grounds. The Shadow Council wasn't done with them yet. Chapter 8. Destiny Claimed. The Shadow Council struck at dawn. Luna awoke to screams echoing across the ceremonial valley, her enhanced senses immediately flooded with the sense of terror and supernatural violence. Beside her in their shared tent, Kale was already moving, his body shifting into partial wolf form as his instincts took over. How many? Luna asked, pulling on clothes with desperate efficiency. Too many, Kale growled, his golden eyes reflecting the orange glow of fires that had somehow appeared around the valley's perimeter. They've surrounded us completely. Through the tent flap, Luna could see chaos erupting throughout the encampment. Wolves from dozens of packs were shifting into battle forms, but their movements seemed sluggish and confused, as if they were fighting against their own supernatural senses. They're using some kind of disorientation magic, Luna realized, her newly awakened abilities detecting the foreign supernatural influence pressing against every wolf's mind. The Shadow Council is forcing confusion through the pack bonds. Elder Sarah's voice rang out through the mental pack network Luna had established. Ancient magic. They're using blood rituals to corrupt our connections to each other. We need. The Elder's mental voice cut off abruptly, replaced by something cold and ancient that made Luna's soul recoil in horror. Greetings, little moon-blessed. The voice whispered through her consciousness like poison. You've caused us considerable inconvenience. Luna staggered as the alien presence pressed deeper into her mind, seeking to dominate her the way it had dominated her father's. But her power pushed back instinctively, creating a barrier of silver fire that made the Shadow Council member hiss with pain. Impressive, but futile. You cannot fight all of us, child. And you cannot protect everyone you love. Images flooded Luna's consciousness, members of the Shadow Council moving through the panicked crowd like hunters among prey. Ancient wolves with eyes like black holes, their forms wreathed in supernatural darkness. They were systematically targeting anyone who'd shown support for Luna's new pack bond structure, eliminating potential allies with ruthless efficiency. Kale. Luna grabbed her mate's arm as he prepared to charge into the battle outside. It's a trap. They're not trying to kill me. They're trying to force me to use my power defensively, to prove that I'm the destructive force they claim I am. Understanding flashed in Kale's golden eyes. They want you to sever pack bonds to save lives. Show everyone that your abilities are inherently violent.
Exactly.
And if I don't use my power, innocent wolves die. Luna's heart clenched as she felt another of her forged connections severed, another life ended. Either way, they win. Through their tent wall, they could hear Alpha Mordecai's commanding roar. Defensive positions. Protect the young and injured. But Luna could sense the futility in the ancient Alpha's voice. The Shadow Council had been planning this assault for decades, and they'd brought weapons and magic that the modern packs weren't prepared to face. There has to be another way, Kale said desperately. some option they haven't considered. Luna closed her eyes, reaching out through her network of altered pack bonds. Instead of focusing on the chaos and violence, she searched for something else, the connections between wolves that transcended individual pack loyalty. The bonds of genuine friendship, family love, and shared purpose that existed independently of supernatural hierarchy. What she found took her breath away. Hundreds of threads of authentic connections stretched between wolves throughout the valley. Blackwood wolves who'd come to respect former Steelclaw enemies, traditional alphas who'd been moved by the honesty of last night's ritual, even some of the Shadow Council's own followers who were beginning to question their leader's methods. "I know what I have to do," Luna whispered, her voice filled with sudden certainty. "Luna, no." Kale gripped her shoulders, his eyes blazing with fear. "Whatever you're thinking." "I'm not going to fight them," Luna said softly. "I'm going to show them what unity actually looks like." Before Kale could stop her, Luna stepped out of the tent and into the battle-torn valley. Around her, supernatural violence raged as Shadow Council members cut through defensive lines with centuries of accumulated power. But Luna ignored the immediate threats, focusing instead on the network of connections she'd sensed. "Listen to me," she called out, her voice carrying supernatural authority that cut through the chaos. "All of you, stop fighting." The command rippled outward through her established pack bonds, but Luna didn't stop there. She reached deeper, touching the authentic connections she discovered, using them as bridges to expand her influence far beyond her original network. One by one, wolves throughout the valley began to slow their frantic movements, drawn by the calm certainty in Luna's voice. "You're afraid of my power," Luna continued, addressing both the Shadow Council and the traditional packs simultaneously. "Afraid that I'll destroy the pack system and leave our people vulnerable. But you're wrong about what my abilities actually do." She opened her mind completely, allowing every wolf present to feel the truth of her intentions. Instead of the hunger for domination they expected, they found something entirely different, a deep, abiding love for all werewolf kind, and a desperate desire to heal the wounds that kept them divided. "I don't want to control anyone," Luna declared, her power flowing outward like warm sunlight. "I want to free everyone." And with that declaration, Luna did something no wolf had ever attempted in recorded history. Instead of severing or manipulating existing pack bonds, she began to dissolve them entirely, not to destroy the connections between wolves, but to allow them to choose their bonds freely for the first time in millennia. The effect was immediate and profound. Throughout the valley, werewolves who'd been forced into rigid hierarchical structures suddenly found themselves able to form connections based on genuine compatibility and mutual respect rather than supernatural compulsion. The Shadow Council members recoiled as if struck by physical blows. Their power had always been based on manipulating existing pack structures, but Luna was making those structures irrelevant. "Impossible," hissed the ancient voice in her mind. "The pack system is fundamental to our nature. Without it, we are nothing but animals." "Without it," Luna replied, her voice carrying to every supernatural consciousness in the valley, "we are free to be whatever we choose to become." She felt the Shadow Council's panic as their centuries-old control began to crumble. Wolves who'd been their unwilling servants for decades were suddenly able to think and choose for themselves. Traditional alphas found their authority based on mutual respect rather than supernatural dominance. And throughout it all, the authentic connections Luna had sensed grew stronger, weaving a new kind of pack structure based on love rather than fear. But the transformation wasn't without cost. Luna could feel her life force draining away as she poured her power into reshaping the supernatural bonds of hundreds of wolves simultaneously. Her vision began to gray at the edges, and she felt her knees buckling. "Luna!" Kale's arms caught her as she collapsed, his mate bond flooding her with strength and support. "Stop this, you're killing yourself." "Almost finished," she gasped, pushing the last of her power outward in a final wave of liberation. The ancient presence of the Shadow Council withdrew like darkness fleeing before dawn, their furious promises of vengeance fading to whispers and then to nothing. Around the valley, the last traces of corrupted supernatural influence dissolved, leaving only the clean, honest connections that wolves had chosen for themselves. Luna's consciousness began to fade, but not before she felt the most beautiful sensation of her life. Hundreds of voices raised in harmony as every wolf in the valley howled their acceptance of the new order she created. When she woke 3 days later in a sunlit cabin, the first thing she saw was Kale's face, his golden eyes bright with tears of relief. "Hey there, my powerful mate," he whispered, his fingers gently stroking her hair. "How do you feel?" Luna took inventory of her body and was surprised to find that while she felt weak, she also felt complete. The constant pressure of maintaining supernatural bonds was gone, replaced by a sense of peaceful connection to the wolf at her side and the chosen family they were building together. "Different," she said finally, "but good different." Through the cabin window, she could see wolves from multiple former packs working together to rebuild the ceremonial grounds. There were no rigid hierarchies or territorial divisions, just people choosing to cooperate because it felt right. "The Shadow Council?" she asked. "Gone, but probably not permanently," Kale admitted. "They're ancient and patient, but they've lost their power base here. The traditional pack structure they relied on to maintain control simply doesn't exist anymore." Luna smiled, feeling a deep contentment settle over her like a warm blanket. "So what happens now?" "Now," said her father's voice from the doorway, "we figure out how to build something better." Vincent entered the cabin with Elder Sarah, both of them looking years younger, without the weight of supernatural manipulation pressing on their minds. "The regional packs are calling it the Great Liberation," Sarah explained, settling into a chair beside Luna's bed. "You've given our people something they haven't had in thousands of years, the freedom to choose their own destinies. And you've given yourself something even more precious," Vincent added, his voice warm with paternal pride. "A mate who loves you for exactly who you are, power and all." Luna reached for Kale's hand, their fingers intertwining with perfect naturalness. Through their bond, now completely voluntary and mutual, she could feel his love, respect, and unwavering support. "I love you," she said simply, the words carrying all the weight of destiny fulfilled. "I love you too," Kale replied, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Forever and always, my magnificent, terrifying, absolutely perfect mate." Outside the cabin, voices were raised in song, a new pack song, created by wolves who were finally free to choose their own harmony. The melody spoke of hope and healing, of love conquering fear, and of a future where strength came not from dominance, but from unity chosen freely. Luna closed her eyes and listened, her heart full of joy and possibility. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but not in the way anyone had expected. She hadn't destroyed the pack system or forced unity upon her people. She had simply given them the freedom to choose love over fear. And, in the end, that had made all the difference. Epilogue. 6 months later. The scent of wild roses and pine needles filled the air as Luna walked hand in hand with Kale through the grounds of what was once the neutral territory between pack lands. Now it was simply home, a community where former enemies had chosen to build something beautiful together. "How are you feeling?" Kale asked, his free hand resting protectively over the small swell of Luna's belly, where their first child grew. "Powerful," Luna replied with a grin. "Apparently pregnancy enhances supernatural abilities. Elder Sarah says I'm glowing with enough maternal energy to fuel a small pack." Kale's laughter was rich and warm. "Our daughter is going to be extraordinary." "Or our son," Luna corrected. "We don't know yet." "I know," Kale said confidently, his golden eyes twinkling with mischief. "Alpha intuition." Luna was about to argue when a familiar howl echoed across the valley, her father's voice raised in the evening song that had become tradition in their new community. One by one, other voices joined his, creating a harmony that spoke of chosen family and freely given loyalty. "Come on," Luna said, tugging Kale toward the communal fire where their people, because that's what they were now, their people, gathered each evening to share stories and strengthen bonds. As they approached the circle of firelight, Luna caught sight of familiar faces illuminated by the dancing flames. Her brother Ash sat with Marcus Ironwood, their former enmity transformed into genuine friendship. Elder Sarah was teaching a group of young wolves about the old ways, but with an emphasis on choice and personal agency. Even some of the former traditionalist alphas had found places in their new community, their wisdom valued, but their authority earned rather than demanded. Luna, Kale. Her father waved them over to seats that had been saved beside the fire. We were just discussing the letter from the Northern Territories. Good news, I hope? Luna asked, settling gratefully into her chair. 3 more regions want to adopt our model, Vincent said, his voice bright with pride. They're asking for guidance on how to transition from traditional pack structures to voluntary associations. Luna felt a warm glow of satisfaction. The change they'd started here was spreading, carried by wolves who'd experienced the freedom of choice and wanted to share it with their extended families. There's other news, Sarah added with a mysterious smile. The Council of Elders, the real one, not those Shadow Council pretenders, has officially recognized our community as the prototype for the next evolution of werewolf society. Kale squeezed Luna's hand. Congratulations, my love. You've changed the world. We changed the world, Luna corrected, looking around the circle of faces illuminated by firelight. All of us, together. As the evening songs continued and the fire burned bright against the mountain darkness, Luna rested her head against Kale's shoulder and felt their unborn child stirring in her womb. The future stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities and challenges, but also full of hope. The prophecy had spoken of a choice between unity and destruction, but Luna had chosen something better, the freedom for everyone to make their own choices about love, loyalty, and belonging. And in a world where wolves could choose their own destinies, anything was possible. The moon-blessed child shall stand at the crossroads of pack and destiny, Luna thought, remembering the ancient words. And her choice shall determine whether the old ways die or are reborn stronger than before. The old ways had died, it was true. But from their ashes, something beautiful and new had been born, a society based on love rather than fear, choice rather than compulsion, and the radical idea that every wolf deserved the freedom to choose their own path. As Luna drifted off to sleep that night, surrounded by the scents and sounds of her chosen family, she dreamed of the future her child would inherit, a world where fated mates could love freely, where power served compassion rather than domination, and where the strongest bond of all was the one freely given. It was, she reflected drowsily, exactly the kind of happily ever after worth fighting for.